Moral education. What is it? Morality is a subject very controversial because in the West, nobody quite understands it. They talk about it as if they know what it means, as if they know the difference between right and wrong. But look at them and their politicians. You can only officially have an idea of what is right and wrong if you have a moral system. A moral system is more than just having laws. That moral system is supposed to promote a particular ideology. So, examples of moral systems would be, well, the Abrahamic faiths, there are three. And then there would be Hinduism and there would be Buddhism. There are 5 world religions. And they are all about saying what we should or shouldn't do. Should is the operating word here when we talk about moral principles and morality. Joe, and he knows who he is, he's regularly here posting insults, doesn't even think that moral principles has anything to do with what should or shouldn't be done. He expressed it in terms of a statement, and that is incorrect. So a principle is that you do one thing. You always do one thing or you never do this thing. It is about always doing something or never doing something. As long as this is understood, we can translate what we think is right and wrong into action that is identifiably moral. Joe doesn't even understand that, but he appears to be educated, but not particularly moral because he actually doesn't understand what it all means. He also hates those who believe in God because he thinks they're stupid. It is this typical Western arrogance of thinking they know better because they have better science and have more money than the rest of the world. But this will soon change. So, with regard to, or let's start at the Eastern religions. Hinduism has some vague principles, and so does Buddhism. We know that Hinduism is idolatrous. And so is Buddhism, really, though technically it is atheist. Buddhism has a few things to say about morality in a kind of philosophical essay-like way. But it is no good about it doesn't guide the typical Buddhist, because if you think about any Buddhist, they'll say, well, anything goes, more or less. And that is probably why the Eastern religions have not been religions that have acquired much empire. India is, after all, a fallen civilization. But let us be clear about what a principle is. It is about always doing something or never doing something. There might be exceptions because there is a saying that every rule has an exception, but that is part and parcel of any legal rule. There will always be exceptions to the rule. And so it is only the Abrahamic faiths that express moral behavior in terms of things that must be done always or must never be done. Joe doesn't understand that, and that is why his hatred and abuse knows no bounds. He has no internal coherence as regards his principles because he actually doesn't understand what they are. I've asked him to articulate his principles more than once, and he's quite unable to do that. And he gets angry when he is unable to answer my questions. And his abuse gets more vicious and worse, but his abuse is my martyrdom. So I don't mind. He only shows himself up for his ignorance and his arrogance and his inability to understand simple fundamentals of morality. So he hates secular Quranism because he hates Muslims and Islam, and his fear is a phobia, meaning that his hatred of Islam and Muslims is, in fact, irrational. We know it is irrational. We know his hatred and fear is irrational because he has nothing better than secular Quranism other than his inability to state his own principles. That is how irrational he is. Fancy thinking that you need a weapon yet refuse to pick one up, or refuse to choose the best one available because you think you're so morally superior that you don't need a weapon, or you can't think through the process of logic that means if you want to be protected from the people that you hate, and boy does Joe hate Muslims, then you need to have the thing that they have, which is a moral system. He has repeatedly cast aspersions on Muslims and Islam, and I have repeatedly challenged him to cite a better guide for humanity than the Quran, and he can't even do that. All he can say is that any book on philosophy would be better than the Quran, and when I ask him to cite it, he is silent or pretends he has answered my question while refusing to say whether he is a non-parent or a father of illegitimate offspring. You see, he lacks moral education to such a degree that he doesn't even think we should have a honest and rational discussion on a level playing field. In the meantime, he accuses me of all kinds of things, of hating white people, when he is the phobic one. But there we are. His abuse and lies is testament to my martyrdom. And this is all part of the system that I am promoting, which is a complete moral system that provides for the rules that you need, provides for the moral system that your laws need to be based on, and allows you your freedom of belief. After all, it is the Quran that actually guarantees freedom of belief. With chapter 2, verse 256, this drives Joe mad because he refuses to acknowledge that the American Republic might be based on something as – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – when confronted with the indisputable fact that there is a White House Quran and it belonged to Thomas Jefferson, he denies that Jefferson could have read the Quran because Joe hates it so much he can never bring himself to acknowledge that Jefferson did own a copy of the Quran and even replaced it when the library that it was in caught fire. But the thing about people like Joe is that they will lie and they will rely on nonsensical arguments to get their immoral way. He knows he can't state a system of morality that anybody has heard of. These are, whatever principles he thinks he has, ridiculous ones. Like, oh, I don't hurt people. What does that mean? I'm sure he hurts, lots of people. His words are intended to hurt me. So he's obviously a liar or somebody so lacking in self-awareness that he doesn't even know that he is lying. But I'm sure he considers himself educated. And there will be many other men who think in Joe's chauvinistic Islamophobic terms. Such men will have no better system than mine. They will be unable to think of anything better than mine, but nevertheless they want to reject it because of their Islamophobia. And they don't care about posterity because they are not married parents. They are either non-parents or parents of illegitimate offspring that they don't care about, from whom they are estranged. So they just don't care. The most that might make them care is that they can continue to reject secular Quranism until their dying day. That is really their pathetic, limited aim. They don't care about what happens to their society after they are dead. They literally do not care about posterity, making them nihilists as well as atheists. So, in dealing with these people, we have to take their pronouncements with a pinch of salt, particularly if they do not care what happens to their society after they are dead. What they care about is, well, being able to maliciously lie and continue to abuse those whose solutions they dislike. And Joe is not the only one. There are many people with bigger channels than me, and they can't do the right thing. They know they have nothing better, but then most of them are non-parents. If they have children, they would be illegitimate and they wouldn't care about them, not enough to try and correct whatever errors there are in the minds of Western men. They only want to continue blaming Muslims and Jews because it's easy. It's easy to subscribe to a conspiracy theory and assume that these conspirators will be all powerful so that you would never be able to win against them. And so the field of it can't even be called political activism because it's only complaint and the obstruction of others who actually want to get things done, the obstruction of people like me. And so because Western man does not have a moral system, he is morally at sea. He will never solve his problems because, well, he hasn't got the intellectual equipment to do so. He doesn't even understand that he has to submit to truth, exercise logic, and confine his action within the boundaries of what is regarded as moral. It is very simple, isn't it? But men like Joe do not even think in those terms. He will do whatever he thinks he can get away with, whatever the law allows. And who knows what the law allows today or will allow tomorrow? Such men are operating under what is really their emotion. The only thing they know for certain is their hatred for the particular groups that they hate. They hate Jews, they hate Muslims, they hate immigrants, and they have done nothing wrong. That is their narrative. They cannot understand that what they think is their moral system has failed. And when I point it out to them, they will say, I have no authority to tell them because, well, I wasn't born here. I'm not white. But what has that got to do with anything? If I speak the truth, then it is the truth, whatever I am. But they will scrape the barrel to try to lower me in status as they try to scramble above me. But what kind of status can these men have when they refuse to even use their real name in any discourse with me? These men have no authority. Whatever they say will not be heeded, but those who are using their real names, they don't wish to engage because they know they cannot win the argument. So their tactic is to, well, not engage while doing their usual lying about me. And this is really what I'm talking about, the moral education of the average Western man. He actually lacks it. He doesn't know what it is. The only thing he knows is his hatred of Jews and Muslims and foreigners. He cannot talk about ideas, the meaning of words, because he is mostly uneducated, and the educated ones don't feel obliged to discuss anything honestly or rationally, as long as they can get away with being dishonest and irrational. In any discourse, it is possible to come up with a form of words even though you've lost your argument. And this is exactly what Joe and others of his ilk do. And that is why only people who officially claim to subscribe to any moral system will be able to take things a little further. I'm not going to answer any questions by people with stupid names. I'll completely ignore it. In fact, I will actually hide stupid names in the chat. Which I will do now. Just waiting for the window to open. Keep mocking me and you will pay with your stupid avatar and your stupid name. Hide user on this channel. So that's a problem. People don't know what I mean. They don't care what I mean. People who are capable of understanding what I'm saying think it's all right to just carry on pretending they don't know what I'm talking about or that I don't raise anything that is worth discussing. We shall see how far this will take them. I'm not talking about you, Howard. I know a proper name, and I know the kind of stupid name atheist nihilists use to assert their Christian identity in order to irritate me. I think it's time to double down on my position on Christianity, which is idolatry and blasphemy, and perfectly all right for people who don't believe that God exists, but want to pretend that they believe in order to get themselves a higher status to other atheists and nihilists who also hate Jews and also hate Muslims. Now I will explain why it is necessary to have a moral system in order to get things done. It's like having an army. You need these men to have a leader whose commands they will follow. Otherwise, there's no point having all these men, because they won't be doing anything that would be worth doing, because nothing they do will be sufficiently focused to achieve anything. So you need a system, and you need somebody who gives orders, and you need people below to carry out those orders. And you see with nationalists, they don't even think they need that. They're just the lost boys of degenerate Britain. They think it's enough to get their super chats, talk to other people like themselves, and never ever do anything while they complain about Jews and Muslims and get their super chats. Well, things are about to change. Things are about to get worse very quickly, even as they think they can indefinitely adopt this strategy to marginalize me. I don't really need to talk to these so-called nationalists who are not capable of defining nationalism or agreeing with me that nationalism should be defined as government in the national interest, and have a dialogue that will lead somewhere. I've tried and tried. They're all stupid or degenerate or unable to take my point, or too crippled by their hatred of Jews and Muslims to be able to say anything sensible or come to any conclusion that might require focused action. I know I'm talking to really very hopeless people, and I suppose I'll just have to rely on people who do have a moral system that they can actually identify that other people might say, oh yeah, I'm a Jew too. I do subscribe to Judaism or Islam or whatever. Well, there are only two religions acceptable to the Abrahamic God if he exists. We know the others are hopeless and really to be denounced. If you're still cleaving to your Christian identity, then it means that you are cleaving to your idolatry and your blasphemy, and this means that you don't really think that God exists to punish you in this life or the next, so you are no better than an atheist and a nihilist, and therefore not worth talking to. And this is really all I want to say about the moral education of anyone. It means that you have if you have a moral system, then it means that it has a name, be it liberalism, if you think that's it, or Nazism, or communism, or socialism. It would have a name, and there would be more than one person believing in this list of rules that is identifiably the moral system that you say it is. And it is necessary that you choose one because, well, who cares about your stupid pick and mix ideas that nobody else agrees with? So you see, even if you were Christian or Catholic, you can at least refer to the Pope as the highest authority on this earth. You would have some hierarchy, some leader, even if he's useless to point to. So if you want to call yourself an Anglican, you'd have to refer to the Archbishop of Canterbury. If you identify as Orthodox, an Orthodox Christian, you'd have to refer to one of the patriarchs of the Eastern or Greek Orthodox Church. And if you're Jewish, well, you could be an atheist Jew, you could be a Reformed Jew, you could be an Orthodox Jew, but then nobody cares what you think because you're, well, not very many and not particularly organized. But Islam, that's an interesting one because it's only the Iranians that made anything of Islam. The Sunnis like to look down on the Iranians, but the Iranians are the only one who actually used Islam for political purposes, and there was a difference between the time before they used it and after they used it. So, well, Iran was just a Western puppet under the Shah. They now have the capacity to defy America and its allies. Now, what has Islam to offer for Westerners? It offers the clear blue water between a future that supports a patriarchy, and that means that you will have a society whose parents are mostly married. And that would regenerate a degenerate populace. It's not going to happen immediately, but that's the best I can offer. In the meantime, these non-parents who are the bachelor boys, the lost boys of the West, will continue rejecting the solution. I hope there will be better people who will come along and have this conversation to raise the consciousness of those who reject the current matriarchy and its intersectionality that threatens us all. Howard says, it is only possible to have hope when in a situation of extreme powerlessness and deprivation. I don't really understand that. Are you saying it is possible to have hope when you are hopeless? So what happened in Iran is an option for us. It won't be exactly as in Iran. Of course it won't be. I won't have control of the interpretation, but I think the general direction of having a moral system from a holy book that will be the basis of our laws to restore the patriarchy must be the only rational and moral choice. Otherwise, we are already being led by the noses into a European war. Well, there is a European war, isn't it? And what European leaders are doing is incomprehensible. If they are acting for the national interest of their European nations, and of course they're not in the pocket of the defense lobbies. Why else would they be falling over themselves to send armaments to the Ukrainians? They must have shares in the defense industries, don't you think? Would China allow itself to be governed under such a demented system? China remains rational, and so does Russia. And that explains why so many Westerners find themselves admiring China and Russia, because at least they have a leader who is doing something that is recognizably in the national interest of Russia and China. Hope or despair? Well, you have to despair before you, well, before you invoke divine salvation. Yes, that must be the answer. So we have to hope for things to get worse in order that more people will feel so hopeless that they will refer to the hypothetical supreme authority who has taken the trouble to give us laws that forbid idolatry and blasphemy. Christine Ramsey, please note. But Christine Ramsey will only parrot whatever the mainstream media say. She, being a woman, will have some sense of what is mainstream, and she will change her mind when the winds of change blow. It wouldn't be for any principled reason, but she will sense it when things change. Unfortunately, many women are like her, but perhaps it's just as well. Since they cannot argue anything properly, they can state their positions, but not even be able to explain the basis of their position, except that it is mainstream and therefore safe to say. She doesn't realize when she is contradicting herself. But it doesn't matter, since people like her will never be intellectuals, because she cannot really understand the basis of ideas and arguments. Yes, when you are out of ammo, and you are surrounded by people who are not out of ammo, then the only thing left you have to do is pray, which means invoking the hypothetical supreme authority who has already taken the trouble to make his revelation known to us. So only sin and defiance prevents these lost boys of nationalism, these hopelessly chauvinistic, hate-filled people who are too intellectually crippled to form obvious conclusions. People like Joe, who have nothing to offer except his very limited aim of going to his grave without acknowledging or sensing or experiencing the power and glory of secular Quranism.